Very excited to get started and to present some really exciting opportunities that you can get involved with as well, but also talk about the creative practices that we do within Northampton College to promote inclusion. Next, please. So some of the courses that we offer, for example, at Northampton College, at the minute we run on specifically the awarding body University Arts of London, and the specialisms we offer is art and design, interior architecture and spatial design, very prominent in the industry currently, especially landscape architecture for sustainable practice, fashion and clothing, fine art, photography, illustration and animation, media, social media, creative media, and the list goes on. There's a lot of courses that we offer. And as you can probably see, I mean, when I first started working in education 17 years ago, the opportunities weren't as vast as it is now, but with the rise of technological advancements, the different career opportunities have grown over time. And as you can see, as a college, we are having to meet the needs of employers and further, with that, expand our portfolio of courses to offer. So the courses that we actually create, design, are linked with the local economy and the key essential skills that are needed within the economy. And therefore, the aim of these programs essentially is when you finish a level 3 qualification, is you can either go on to university, which would normally historically be the normal route, but there are options now where you can do things such as degree apprenticeships. You can go into full-time work. We've had students from our department who've gone from straight from level 3 into full-time work, or you can even do a degree, a HE degree. There's other things such as apprenticeships as well. So HE is just not the one-way route. And that's one thing that I really want to make clear to students is that, you can be successful in your own right without just going through the same routes that everybody else goes. Everybody is an individual and everybody learns in their own way. And also it is progresses in different ways and directions. Next, please. Okay, brilliant. So, inclusive education, what is it specifically? So, to me, it's an approach that when we think about inclusive education, the one thing I say is it creates a sense of belonging. Every single one of you in this room and even, outside of this room, we're all individuals. And with that, it is really important to celebrate, but also recognize backgrounds, abilities, different learning styles, and create a sense of belonging. Now, within the School of Arts, we always say that we create a School of Arts because we become a collective. We look after our own, and that is very much celebrated in the creative arts sector, is diversity, is difference, and it's very much promoted in every pathway. Next. So, interestingly enough, a few years ago, I actually watched a documentary and I thought I wanted to share this fact because we tend to attract within the School of Arts, particularly creative jobs and roles, we tend to always attract quite neurodivergent individuals. And there was a study actually presented, and it was of an MRI scan where it showed that the scans of a dyslexic brain actually shows that those who have, for example, dyslexia, their brain operates differently. So, for example, if you're sitting there and you've got dyslexia, you might most likely have creativity. You'll be very strong in visual spatial reasoning and problem solving. And it's quite apparent that a lot of people who are in the creative sector tend to be neurodivergent. Now, the reason why I'm raising this is, first of all, I myself, as a neurodivergent educator, I have got dyslexia, and I always found that worked in different ways. And it wasn't until later in life that I actually got the diagnoses. And then I thought, oh, that makes sense. So, researching into neurodivergence and how you can empower your ability within your disability and really use it, maximize it to do some fantastic creative outcomes and work in the creative pathways and creative sectors and capitalize on that for yourself. Next. Some examples of historical dyslexic artists. So you've got Pablo Picasso, you have Andy Warhol, you have Jackson Pollock. There's another artist I haven't actually put on there that I will mention. It's called Vince Lowe. And Vince Lowe is an artist that I used to teach years ago, and he's absolutely fantastic and would do what we call scribble portraits based on famous people in the creative industry. And the idea is to celebrate inclusion, to celebrate diversity, and really promote individuality. And that's really important because I always say to all of my students, I have done my job wrong if you all leave this college doing the exact same thing. I want you to celebrate individuality. I want you to celebrate your uniqueness. And with that, that comes in you being yourself. And that's more than ever apparent in this world that we're living in, is to use your voice and use it in a positive way to create the creative outcomes you're more than capable of doing. Next. So some examples of projects we've involved our students in. So I've been at this college now for just about a year and a half, believe it or not. It feels like I've been there a long time now because I feel part of the woodwork. And an example, what we did, we've got Alex Mann, who is a British Superbike Championship racer. He is a Northamptonshire-based racer. And when essentially he started his career, EB1 contacted us and said, Steph, how about um, we do a photo shoot to help launch Alex's career? And me being me, I said, why not? Absolutely. I love extreme sports, especially motorbikes. So and the first week, couple of weeks of when starting my new job, we had to do a lot of health and safety risk assessments and wheel a giant super motorbike up the lift, up the stairs. And our photography students got engaged in that project. And you can see them on the left there. We got him in the studio and we must have done about a 12-hour shoot. Um, Now that is very different to school. Some of you might be sitting there and go, we've never been in, that's a long day to spend at school. But you can see they're still smiling. The students are still smiling. They very much loved the experience. And it really taught them those collaborative key industry skills. Specifically because when you do go in industry, you most likely will be working in a team setting. So communication, collaboration, learning how to work with others, those things are absolutely essential skills. So setting up these types of projects can really extend and enhance your portfolio. Next, please. Another example of a collaborative partnership we had was with Adrenaline Alley. If you don't know where they're based in Corby, Northamptonshire, and they are Europe's biggest indoor skate park, home to Olympic riders, one of them being Charlotte Worthington, gold medalist, and also Declan, who was also a bronze medalist. And we had some fantastic opportunities to particularly go to Adrenaline, where our photography students again went and photographed the 22nd anniversary event of Adrenaline Alley. We had opportunity again to come back this year. So again, thinking about opportunities in your local vicinity, if you're a student sitting here and you're wanting to get into the creative sector, is look at the local companies, look at the local opportunities and think about how you can develop your portfolio and diversify your set of experiences. I always say to my students, it's not just about coming to college, doing your course, finishing your coursework and submitting it. It's about leveling up and taking all those opportunities to expand and enrich your CV and your set of skills. Next, please. So talking about skills and expanding those different skills, this is an example as well. We collaborated with a local company called The Creative Place. So this is Becky Carrier, who's a film director for Northampton Film Festival and Music Festival as well. And we did something called the Northampton College Fine Art Takeover. And these are things and ideas that you could even do within a local vicinity for yourselves. So what we actually did, we had something called the Rotating Art Gallery. And over the space of 1 month, students in our fine art pathway provision set up, curated, exhibited their work. So they're really key skills they're learning, presenting their work, selling their work, packaging their work, speaking to the public. And then after each week, they went in and did a gallery rotation. The really exciting thing about this is we actually had a gentleman who actually worked on Sky Artist of the Year and did the lighting for us and talked to us and did a whole discussion about exhibition and presentation. Because it's not just about you doing work in your sketchbook and tucking it away and putting it into your bag. It's about building that confidence to get your work out there in the public realm, talking to the public, and advocating for your work. It's very hard as an artist because sometimes we can be very insular and We can hide our work and might feel like it's not good enough to showcase in the wider world, but it absolutely is. And based off of this, we had a lot of public interest where it led to lots of other opportunities down the road. And further students sold their work as well and made money, which was brilliant. Next, please. This is another example. So this is actually a cross collaboration. So our level 3 art and design students actually created these garments, so linking to sustainable skills. Again, part of the global goals and alongside part of, in particular, the government's agenda is to create a sustainable future for all of us to live in. So as a college, we really push that and promote that within all of our pathways. Now, with this particular project, we had our students in particular, they had their garments. They created and refabricated them out of found materials such as paper, magazines, as you can see. And then we cross-collaborated with our photography team to do a photography shoot, which, as you can see, the outcomes were beautiful. And this linked to specifically Bauhaus, which is an art movement that was established a long, long time ago now. But it was a reinterpretation of that art movement in a modern way. And these are some examples that, again, if you're sitting there and you're watching this, please get involved. Think about ways you can recycle, repurpose, upskill. Next. The art print sale. So again, this is actually something I worked in a college in London, and I seen this as best practice. And I thought the first thing when I started Northampton College, I thought, my goodness, I have to encourage the team to really get the work out there. And I said to all the students in the department and staff, let's set up an art print sale. So the students across all pathways, you can see they cellophane, they packaged, they priced their work. We set up the art studio as a walking pop-up studio so people could walk in and select pieces. And believe it or not, we actually, just before Christmas, we made just short of £700. Now, this money went directly to the students who sold their own work. For me, that's really important because it's about you as an artist and as a creative getting recognized. And whether you are selling your work, it's really important to price your work up, to really gauge your level of what you feel your work is valued at and not to undervalue or undersell your work. And, you know, from this, based on this, a couple of people later on bought pieces, individual pieces from students. One in particular sold their work, I believe it was for around £250 for one piece. And I think sometimes as creatives, we can absolutely underestimate our work and not realize how much value is in that, because it's not just about the end product. It's about the packaging, it's about the pricing, it's about the time, the research that's gone into you creating that piece. And that's one piece of advice I'd give to anyone watching this, is make sure you're not just pricing your work up based on the outcome. You need to ensure to cost the research, the development phase, and all the different aspects that you're using to package your work together, because that costs money, such as, you know, buying the stickers, buying the cellophane, purchasing the card in which the work's going to be packaged into. Next. So the Humanise campaign, again, when I first started Northampton, I walked into the office and one of the amazing coordinator lecturers, we run an interior architecture course, and he had this book sitting on his desk. Now, the Humanise campaign is one of the biggest worldwide campaigns about creating buildings that are made to last longer. And instead of them being torn down in, say, a few years' time, is about the longevity of them, is creating buildings that are made as social spaces for humans, for people, and for it to be a building that lasts more than the time it does currently. So we collaborate with the Humanise campaign, and I'm going to talk to you about some outcomes that we produced. Next, please. So this was a visual outcome one of our students produced. Now, this example here is of a folly forest, and I won't go into the details too much, but the key programs this student used are actually free. So if you are interested in interior architecture or architecture, especially landscape architecture, which is really prominent in the industry, and there's a huge gap and a lot of opportunities for employment as that links to the sustainable goals of our economy and of the UK. So Lumium was the software that we used to render this design, that the student used to render this design. And SketchUp was the software they used to 3D model it. So this is a still image of a 3D spatial design that the student created themselves. Next, please. Now you can see the different elements they've created. So before we even get to this piece, for example, here, before you go into SketchUp, before you go into Lumium and you start to render it, the first instance is research. And that's one thing I want to really, really make clear to all students, people sitting on this call today. If you do not know your subject, you are already in a pit where you are not going to be able to push your design to the next level. And it's about, think about it in the sense, if you went to a design studio and you was presenting a design to a client, they would expect you to know what has been done before, why you've selected the colors, why you've selected certain typography, visuals, graphics, and for you to understand specifically why you need to know your research. And that is based on market trends. It might be based on, for example, the current climate in which we're based in. So if you think about the sustainable goals, is this student thinking about how am I creating solar paneled designs or designs for the environment that are going to be beneficial for our ecosystem? Next, please. So again, this is another shot from a different angle, so you can see the design. So the perspectives, the student particularly went into Lumium and created several different shots from different perspectives, as you can see. Next, please. So this student, we actually nominated for an award to an open call award called Creative Conscience. If you ever have availability, I would really, really recommend professionals, industry experts, especially in the creative sector, to attend the Creative Conscience event. It's a fantastic event, but also it gives you opportunity later on to nominate students for awards. And we nominated particularly Lola Elmer. So Lola actually got her award and was awarded for the interior architecture and engineering category. And that was for her design at Southsea Forest. And that was based on the design I've just shown you, which was based on butterfly wings. And Lola's Folly design incorporates sustained glass to allow for colored light to shine on surrounding environment, creating an immersive experience. We actually then took this design and imported this into a VR headset. So you could put the VR headset on and then walk around the architectural space, and that is taking it to the next level. Even if you go on, for example, if any of you use Amazon, you'll notice now that if you go onto the app, you can click on it and it will project into the room augmented reality. And with technological advancements, digital skills are a really key aspect for students, especially in the creative sector, to learn. It's not just about green skills or sustainable skills, it's also about expanding your digital skills and really developing that, because that is, again, a really key drive in the industry currently. Next. So talking about digital skills, this is in particular AI real-time fashion design tool. So our lecturer, Craig Fellows in specific, he's a fantastic coordinator and manages across the level 2 and level 3, year 1 and year 2 fashion pathway. Now, this is AI in real time. So you can see Look is an open source, again, that you can use. The sketch on the left is an image that was imported, uploaded into this application. And then you start to talk to it. So you can see at the bottom left, it says prompts, and he is talking to it and he's saying, okay, what's the adjustment level? And what prompts do I want to give this AI app? So on the next slide, we'll show you how that works. So you can see it started off from a drawing on the far left. The prompt was red ripstop jacket with large hood, dystopian future survival in harsh environment, baggy oversized jeans, lots of pockets with white work boots, layered gilet, clear plastic stuffed with off-cut scrap fabric materials. So prompting AI, and I think as creatives, sometimes it can be quite scary, because I hear a lot of my students always saying this is going to take the creativity from us. But I think use AI as a complementary tool. See it as something that will benefit you in the sense of the different opportunities you'll be able to use to maximize your creative flow. So, for example, what I mean by that is if you go to stage one, which is the drawing, that's then being taken through to AI. So you're working in two different fields there. You're working with traditional skills, but also digital skills, and then combining the two together. So I always say to my own students in particular is see AI as a complementary tool. It's not about taking over your workflow, but it's about learning to use it in a complementary way. So it speeds up your workflow and also allows you to work in a more efficient manner. So you can see here the development that's taken place is as when he first created a design, he wasn't happy with that. So he started to communicate with the prompt a little bit more. And further, it started to digitize into the next stage until he got the third outcome on the far right, where it was starting to present exactly how he felt the design should look. So using AI, it's not something that should be feared, but it should be something that is something that can be recognized as a really useful tool and a beneficial tool. Now, one thing you have to be obviously aware of is copyright, and you can't obviously just take work and utilize it as your own. And especially as a creative, it's really important to keep that authenticity in your creative flow and your working practice, because I think as an artist, you still want to keep authenticity within your own work. So using it as a complementary tool rather than overtaking your actual art practice is really important. Next, please. So a few things really is inclusion to me unlocks brilliance. And what I mean by that is there is always a space and a place for you in any pathway. And I think in particular, I remember when I was, 16 in school, and I would think to myself, what am I going to do? And if I'm completely honest, I genuinely didn't know when I first was 16 years old. All I knew was that I loved the creative arts. I loved working with people, and I thought I want to combine those two together. And I ended up falling into education and into the creative sector and then finding my vocation. And if you can find two things where you go, these are the two things that I wish to do, and that really allows you to not only have a career, but also have a vocation. And I always say two things to my students is, do you want to wake up every day? And do you want to go to work and think, oh my goodness, because the reality is we all have to work, we all have to earn to live the lives that we want to live. But do you want a career or do you want a job? And to me, a job is where you have to get up 9 to 5, you'll do your job because you've got to earn the money to pay the way. To me, a career is where you'll get up, you'll go to work and you'll go, I love what I'm doing. Now, don't get me wrong, there'll always be times where you'll go, okay, it's little pinching points and it's getting a little bit, pinching points is what I mean by sometimes you will feel tired or a little bit stressed, and that's natural in any job that you do. Genuinely, that is part of any job. But if 90% of the time you go, I really love what I do and I enjoy going to work and engaging with these different activities, you're on the right track. And I think you have to find your vocation as well as a career, because it's not just about, to me, it's never been about the money. It's about, if you're working for X amount of years in your lifetime, find something that ticks your box. Find something that allows you to unlock your brilliance. And I always say, every one of you sitting in this room has a seed inside your mind, and that just needs to be unlocked to be grown into an idea. And that idea you might not know yet, but when you find the place and the space that allows you to be your most authentic self, that's when you will find the best version of yourself. Next, please. So I just want to say thank you very much